me to press start webinar?
I got it. See if people start trickling in. Oh, good. People are starting to trickle in. Oh, it's Dave. Hi, Dave. Welcome. I know you can't talk, so sorry. I can allow you to talk though. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
You guys are famous.
We are getting there.
Yeah. So Dave and Sandy were the folks that were on channel 19 here recently, and what else? A couple other Spectrum and Cleveland.com.
Yep. Plain dealer for those who still get that.
Yeah, that's right. I can do it. I see it in Drug Mart sometimes. So Mariah is going to be interviewed here soon by Spectrum as well, down in Columbus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for the HOA Senate bill. So I had already done the NPR article way back when, but switch it up.
Well, this is good. If it's a small group, that's okay. This is going to be Mariah's first go at this. She'll do great, but it'll be a great experience for her and you guys. We'll get into it here in just a second. I'll introduce her at the top of the hour.
Battery 100%.
That was Dave over at the county, just trying to get things set. He had trouble logging on. So anybody else have any trouble logging on? There's a little hand raise button there. You can raise your hand if it was some issue logging on. If not, we won't worry too much about it. Maybe it's more of a Dave issue. And not this Dave, not our Dave here, but the Dave of the county. So I see we've got 8 folks now. That's great. Welcome, everybody. Diane, Daniel, Dale, Dave, Aaron, Grace, Kevin, Steve, Thomas, Scott. Oof, bunch more. Welcome, everybody. Oh, it's going to be a pretty big group today. That's great. No pressure, Mariah. I should have mentioned that.
It's all good.
Okay, great. I see Grace and her husband are both here. Thank you for mentioning that. 14, 15. Wow. All right, we are at the top of the hour. Welcome, everybody. I am Tristan Rader, Solar United Neighbors Ohio Program Director. And just want to welcome you tonight to the presentation of the information session, the 101, Solar 101, talking about rooftop solar, how that's going to fit into your life potentially. I see some folks on here some names I know and a lot of names I don't. That's great. Would love to certainly connect with you through this process and help you go solar. Or maybe you can help us share your story. We've got some folks on the call who actually have been instrumental in helping get the word out about how solar has helped them and has added to their lives and to their sustainability and helped them achieve their goals. So would love to do the same for you guys. But before I get too long in the tooth here, I am, again, Tristan, I'm the program director for Ohio, but we have a brand new person came on just last month, but she's actually been with us for about a year in a different capacity, and that's Mariah Williams, and she'll be sharing tonight's information session. Before stepping up to this role just last month, she was our Ohio Homeowners Association Education program person, and she ran the webinars for that initiative that we did. And there's a lot happening there too. And maybe at the very end, we'll get into that, but maybe not. This is mostly focused on rooftop solar, and Mariah's going to walk you through it. So and we have one other person on, I'm sorry, Christina from our staff. She's the Go Solar professional who helps us execute these co-ops and does a lot of the correspondence. If you email us, it's more than likely she'll be the one responding, and she's super smart. She's the one you want responding anyway. But we're only ever an email away. So say hi, Christina.
Thank you. Thank you, Tristan. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Solar 101 information session.
Great. Well, I'll leave it at that, and I will turn it over to Mariah. Have fun.
All right. Well, thank you, Tristan. I'm trying to get, there it goes, our solar information session slides up. So if you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put those in the chat. If they're timely in nature, then Tristan or will let me know about them, and I will, get to trying to get you an answer for those. So like I said, just drop them in the chat as we're going along. So as Tristan mentioned, this is our solar information session. And I am the new Ohio Program Associate. So welcome to our program for this evening. So we are a nonprofit out of the District of Columbia, out of DC, and we started in 2011. Our founder and director is Anya Schoolman, and she started this effort because her son came home concerned about climate change after watching the movie An Inconvenient Truth, and asked about, what it would take for them to go solar on their own home. And whenever she got to looking into it, she realized that going solar was, a little bit more complicated than she thought it would be, and said, well, if we're going solar, we might as well help the whole neighborhood go solar. And so they went up and down their block to ask their neighbors who might be interested in doing it. And the response was just tremendous. And it created what was the very first of our co-ops, the Mount Pleasant Solar Co-op. And so as word of the effort spread throughout DC, then we started having, more interest in it. And so we started DC Sun to manage other groups around the city. And we've looking now, we fast forwarded several years. We're a 501c3. We also have a C4 division, and we manage several state-based programs. We're up to 12 of those plus DC, and we're still growing. And we use the expertise that we have gained to develop these programs to help other groups across the country do the same, to have renewable energy and fight for good policy. Like Tristan was mentioning, here in Ohio, we're working on a community solar and an HOA policy on top of all of our co-op work. So we've ran a little over 200 co-ops in the US, and 20 of those have been done right here in Ohio. We have over 2 megawatts installed in Ohio on rooftops, thanks to our co-ops. And from what I'm hearing, this is the 10th co-op for Cuyahoga County, and 120 of those installs have been done through the co-op programs. So that's some really great numbers. We're hoping to add to it with this co-op. So there will be three main parts to this presentation tonight. First up is solar technology. We'll go over all the different parts and pieces that you would see if you do have it installed on your home. Then we will follow that up with some solar economics, talking about how it will, help offset your budget for your normal monthly power bills. And then we'll talk a little bit about how solar co-ops work and where we are in that process with this one. All right, and jumping right in here with our solar and EV charger tech section. So today we're talking about solar photovoltaics, which is also known as solar PV technology, and that converts your light energy into usable electricity. So those are the panels that you see sitting on the roof. Those are solar PV. And the majority of today's solar market is that PV technology. You'll also sometimes see mentioned solar thermal technology, which is just another residential solar tech application. It's usually used for things like heating your pool, and it's just a small percentage of today's market. So what we really focus on, what this co-op is for the solar voltaic, the panels that'll sit on your rooftop. So most people going solar have a system that's set up very similar to this. And we're going to talk about each of the components in a little bit of details here to give you an overview of how it works. So the solar panels are mounted on your roof, and those are what produces the electricity. That electricity flows into step 2, which is your inverters, where it is converted from direct current to alternating current, which, AC power is what everything in your home runs on. So then it connects to your electric panel, where the power gets used up by all of your appliances and devices, lights and things throughout your house. And if you're not using all of that power, say you're producing a little bit more on a nice sunny day, it'll send that excess out into your utility meter, which goes out into the local power lines and gets shared by your neighbors. And then to take a little bit closer look at one of those solar panels, they're made up of somewhere between 60 and 72 cells. That's those little tiny sections. And then those are connected together in series to form the whole panel that you'll see on the roofs. And they are, grouped together and sealed up to keep out dust and moisture. So these are water and weather resistant. And they have a hardened glass layer on top. And then they have either a glass or a metal backing, depending on how they're made. And they are encased in an aluminum frame. Sometimes those are silver, sometimes they're black, depends on, what look you're going for, what company you go with. And the final product, all in all, is about 3 feet by 5 feet, and they weigh around 50 pounds. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of what you're putting up there on your roofs. So let's talk about a little bit of your terminology and what you're seeing. So whenever you group several of those panels together, they're called your solar array. And then you get from those the kilowatts. And where some people get confused on this, I like to describe it this way. So you've got kilowatts, and that's kind of like your water hose. And it tells you how much of something's being dispersed. And your kilowatt hours tells you how much of it you've saved up together. So whenever you're looking at the measurements coming out of your system, you're looking at how fast that hose is flowing of it, and that's your kilowatts. And your kilowatt hours are how much you've pulled up across, the day or in storage or whatever. So that's, your big bucket or your bathtub that you're filling up with that hose. So, and your system is measured in those kilowatts, and your electricity production, that pool of it, is stored in the kilowatt hours. And most homeowners find that a system between 2 kilowatts and 12 kilowatts is suitable for their needs, which covers between 20 and 80% of your typical utility bills. And then as we move further into this, and we're looking at some of the different parts of your systems, you have your racking system, which is the part that you'll first see them install on your roof in most cases. And those are the little pieces where they have penetrations that go through the shingles. They have a special sealant they put down to make sure there isn't any leaking. And then the panels get mounted on top of those. And then there are optimizers, which, sit onto the back of the panels and help to control the power separately and make the system more efficient. And then you have your inverters, which convert the DC power that these solar panels make into the AC power that your home can use. And that way it's ready for use in your home, on the grid, wherever. All right, and then we have some different types of roofs that the racks and the systems can be installed on. So perhaps you have a slate roof. If you do, that's one of the questions that we ask whenever you're, signing up for the co-ops. If you have shingles or a slate roof, if you have a flat roof, if you have a tin roof, you just let us know. Some of the installers work with all types of roofs. Some of them don't. Sometimes it costs more on some of the types, but there are options for all different types of roofs. So you've got, some samples here of the standoff beams and the different ballast systems like they might use on membrane roofs or flat roofs. Some of the different types of clamps, pitch pockets and flashing, different samples of things that, might be used in your racking system to help get the system ready to go onto your roof.
So we got one question here from Daniel.
Okay.
What do you think the integral solar roof shingle products out on the market now? What do you think about them? Any thoughts?
So I was going to say Tesla roofs are not currently available to any of our installers here in Ohio that I'm aware of. We work with several different installers, and I don't know of any of those working with that product. They have to be granted special licensing. It seems like a really interesting product, but it's just not available everywhere yet. And then there are some other new smaller panels. I've seen some pictures of them going across this week in an article in PV magazine, actually, and they look really interesting. I'm not sure about the efficiency of those. It seems like since they're so much smaller, so they look more like a standard shingle, that maybe they're not quite as efficient because there's, a frame on each one of those. So it's kind of like, if you had 10 little 10-inch televisions instead of one 60-inch television, that you're going to have an efficiency issue with them. But that's just my take on them. Like I said, since we don't deal with those here very often, I don't know if we have more information on those. Tristan, do you have?
No, not really. I mean, I talked to some installers, some larger sort of outfits that do residential in more than just Ohio, around middle of last year, like 8 or 9 months ago. And they had indicated that they were interested at some point in becoming a solar roof installer, but they knew it wouldn't happen until, years from now, potentially. They weren't holding their breath. And they're really seeing and they're looking at this sector of integral roof solar as being a replacement for high-end sort of roof materials. Like, so if you have a fancy shake roof or some kind of tile roof, those are their target market, because you can't replace a regular asphalt roof with integral solar cells and come anywhere near the price of replacing your roof and putting traditional solar panels on them right now. And it'll be years and years, they figure, a few years, 5 years maybe, until that they're able to sort of compete in that market. But right now, it's getting close to competitive in that very high-end roof material market.
That's a great question, Noah, and thanks for throwing that out there to us. And hopefully, it'll be something that we do see here in Ohio in the near future. But for right now, we're probably looking at the normal panels, especially for this co-op. So looking at another type of the roof, most of our owners that are putting it onto their rooftops for, the co-ops here in Ohio don't typically have the flat roofs, but there are options for those. Those are typically ballasted rooftops. So those are held down by weights. And there's, all different types of approaches they can take to them. So this is a flat roof example where they've got the ballasted systems, and the roof structure obviously has to be enough to support both, the panel weight and the additional weight of holding those pieces down. And then you also might opt for ground mount solar if you had a lot of space, or if you have a big amount of energy consumption that's needed for your site. Ground mounts are typically more popular in rural areas because of the, aforementioned need for space. And the conduit might be metal or plastic that protects the wire against your outside elements as they connect to different systems like the array and the inverters. And all of these PV systems are required to be grounded to the earth for safety for obvious reasons. All right. And then we're looking at some different roof considerations. So it's important to note that, if you've got a southern facing home, that's best here in Ohio, where we're in the northern hemisphere, but east and west roofs still work with really good efficiency. And if you have a bunch of big trees around your home that provide a lot of shading, that you might also see that can pose a little bit of problems. And then the tilt and direction of your roof and the aging condition. So we like to recommend that your roof not be at the end of its lifespan. So like in the case with my own personal home, my roof was at 20 years old. And so we had our roof replaced right before we entered the co-op, so that we were going to have the maximum amount of life left on our, shingles, so that we wouldn't have to be looking at having anything done with the roof materials underneath of the panels anytime soon. And our warranty was still intact because we just went through an inspection with our roof as soon as they were done installing the system. So, and whenever you sign up for the co-op, some of our Go Solar specialists will look over your roof and do a quick assessment of it for free. Even if you choose not to participate in the co-op, it still doesn't cost anything. And they just do that so that they can see that you are facing the right direction, that you have good space on your rooftop, that you don't have a ton of shading. And that way you'd know more about what you do need for your system and what you could expect to be hearing from the installation company. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about the process for how this happens. So of course we start with the sun, and it shines down and it hits those solar panels on your rooftop. The energy coming out of it is DC, represented there by the little red arrow, and it goes into your inverter, where kind of the magic happens, and it translates it into the AC power that your home can use, represented coming out with the blue arrow. And then your home appliances can use that power, or your lights, whatever systems you're wanting to run with it, computers, TV, mining for Bitcoin, you name it, you can probably be doing it with that power. And if you have a grid tied system, which I think most of our systems are, most of us don't end up being, disconnected from the grid with our systems. That takes a lot of power. But if you are a grid tied system, any of that extra power that you're making, like today was a good example here in central Ohio. My system was making a little over 8 kilowatts at one point, which was a lot more than our house needed to be using. We were only using about 1.5 of it ourselves at that moment, even with appliances and furnaces running. And so we started sending part of it back out to the grid, which, lets us segue here into net metering, and the fact that the power company was basically giving me a 1-to-1 credit for that power I was giving them. So now here late in the day, whenever the sun is down and I'm not making solar energy, I'm still even up on the credits that I'm using for the day. So until I run out of those, then anything I am using here this evening doesn't hit my bill the same way. So whenever we're talking about net metering, that is essentially allowing the grid to act like a big battery in its own little way. So you're generating more than you can use, and the extra electricity flows back through the meter. If you have an old-fashioned meter on the side of your house, I hear that you'll see the numbers actually rolling backwards during the day, which is kind of fun to think of. I know here we have smart meters. I don't know what everybody else has, but ours doesn't show the numbers running backwards, but they'll kind of pause and it'll recalculate them. So you'll see those little generated numbers as it's going along with that. And so your monthly electric bill will look a little bit different than it does now whenever it comes. So it'll show your power used. It'll show the generation and the connection fees still, but then it'll also show the electricity produced, and they take that amount back off of it. So sometimes you get negative bills in the mail if you've made more power than you've used, which is kind of fun. And this is another way to look at it. So you've got, like January might be a low production month, but a high consumption month for you because you're running the furnaces, you're inside a lot, so you've got lights on, maybe you're doing some extra baking. And so you're going to still have, your power bill that month because you'll have only made a little bit of the solar to offset it. But then you get over to May, and you're going to have a ton of production. Maybe you're outside more, you're not running your AC so heavy yet, so you're not consuming as much. And so you're going to have that credit rolling forward. And different utilities work different ways. I think that it was mentioned to me that CPP, Cleveland Public Power, does it so that you have a even up month in June. So each June, any credits that you have left over would just automatically, I would guess, disappear, but otherwise they'll keep rolling forward. So your July and August credits would help offset what extra power you're using in October and November and December that you're not producing. Some of the power companies also choose to do it on a monthly basis. So every month you're just evening up with yourself. All right, and with a grid-tied system though, you also have the fact that if you do have an outage, whenever that grid isn't available, it'll disconnect your system. And that's to protect the linemen out there, because if you're making power and feeding it into the grid and there's an outage, being caused somewhere else, then that power would feed into the grid and be a danger to them. So your inverters are automatically, your whole system is automatically smart enough that it will just disconnect you and not let you use the power and not feed the power out to anybody. And there's different ways you can get around this. So if you have a battery tied system, you get something known as a transfer switch, a battery backup system. And so the power will go in and out of the battery and allow your home and appliances to still be using it. So if you were in an outage situation and you have a battery, then you're going to still have access to your solar panels and the solar energy because it has no need to feed the extra out to the grid. The extra will be stored into your battery. And it also lets you use that battery power to power your home in the case of an outage. All right, and then we have some more information about all of these details on our residential storage guide. So you can find that on our website. And these links will all be provided again, at the end of the presentation, and they're pretty easy. You can always type in our search bar and find our storage guide and different parts of it. So if you've got some follow-up questions, or you're wanting to look at parts of it later, if you just want to reread over it, then all of that is available to you. I think we're jumping to a slightly different section next. So if we have any questions in chat.
Sure, I have a question here from Max.
Okay.
A couple questions. We have one from Diane too. Diane says, what is the life expectancy of a solar panel?
All right, so most of the panels now are warranted around 20 years to 25 years. And they're expecting those to maintain at least 80% of their original energy availability. So if your panel starts, failing within that first 20, 25 years, then you can get a hold of the manufacturer or your installer. It sometimes varies on what the process is, but they'll get with you and get that piece replaced and fixed up for you.
Great. In an outage situation, this is from Max, with a battery backup, will the battery continue to charge?
So if you have solar energy coming in at that moment, then yes, it will continue to charge. So we have, in my home system, we have a 10 kilowatt hour battery backup available. And so during the day, whenever we've had outages happen, the battery has charged up on the solar that's available. And then in the evening, we can draw from that. We also do something called self-consumption because we're trying to stay off of the grid as long into the evening as we can. So each evening we just use our own battery instead of connecting up to the grid. Sometimes we can make it overnight. Sometimes whenever it gets down, single digits have been a real eater of that battery power with our furnace running as often as it does. So we usually end up back on the grid by morning right now. But, otherwise, yes, you can keep charging that battery up and discharging it even during an outage. It just depends on how much extra solar you're producing at the time. Did that catch everybody?
That is it.
All right. Great questions. All right, so now we're going to move into a little bit of the economics of your solar. So solar is no longer a boutique item. As the market has grown, prices have dropped considerably. So if we look back to 2010, it would have cost you about $6.50 per kilowatt to put this on your rooftop, where nowadays we're looking at about $2.42. Sometimes even a little bit lower than that with, our co-ops. It just depends on, what right now with the market fluctuations and supply chain issues, sometimes the pricing is a little bit different. But systems typically pay for themselves somewhere between 8 and 12 years into installation. That can be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter, depending on some of the different factors, like the cost of your utility electricity, competitiveness for solar in the market. That's where, being in a co-op can help, because it helps to get your price down, how much or how you finance your system. So if you have to take out a loan and then it obviously costs you that little bit more in interest, or if you're, financing it yourself, it might cost you a little bit less, and as well as your state, local, national incentives. I think here in Ohio, we really only have the national, your federal tax incentives for it. But, some places have different things, and there may be different pieces to it that do allow you to get, a little bit more of a discount. And then we have another graph here that helps to show this in a little bit different ways. So it shows your soft costs, like your transmission, your sales tax, and everything that goes into it, as well as your installation, your hardware, inverters and modules, and how that compares, on your systems versus your commercial systems and your utility systems. So kind of nice to see it compared out in a few different ways, and how the installation costs vary from our rooftop solar to the giant, fields full of it. And then we have here, so looking back at like the 4 kilowatt system, like we talked about earlier, a little bit smaller system, a good system size for most homes. Let's say that it's producing 1,200 kilowatt hours. So that ends up being 4,800 kilowatt hours over the course of the year, but your home is still using that same 10,000 kilowatt hours like it used before you had a system. So 48% of your total energy is now going to be coming from solar. So you're not going to be paying for half of your power bill because, your rooftop would be making it, which would give you a savings of around $600 per year here in Ohio, where we have fairly solid, good prices on our electricity compared to some other regions and areas. And it typically takes up about 3 panels make up 1 kilowatt. So in a 4 kilowatt system, you'd be looking at the space available needed would be for 12, panels of it. And in here we have broken down a little bit better so that you can see the different sizes of systems. So let's say that you went with that 4 kilowatt system and you're wanting to compare it to what would be a bigger system. So if you had that 4 kilowatt system and the co-op pricing was, we'll just go with $2.52 a watt, that's going to come in at about $10,080. You get a federal tax credit. Right now, that is 26% through the end of this year, and then it will sunset down to 22%. But through this year, so if you're in this co-op, you definitely have your install completed in time. You'd get a federal tax credit of $2,600, give or take a few dollars there, and your net cost would end up being $7,459, which is giving you an estimated savings each year of $600. And if you looked at that over the lifetime of the system, that 25 years that they're usually warrantying them for, that is $18,000 in savings. So you're actually making about $10,000 on that 4 kilowatt system. And then if you have a higher power need in your home and you had the rooftop space and you went with like a giant system, a big 12 kilowatt system, and you were looking at it being priced in at about $30,000 to start with, you'd get a federal tax credit of $7,862, which would have your net cost be $22,000 and a little change. But your lifetime savings on that would be $54,000. So you're still going to be making that nice return on your investment, and you'd end up with about $31,000 in profit. And while it isn't all just, money coming back to you, nobody's going to write you a check for it. It's still, you're looking at offsetting your power bill. So that it helps out with that, and it ends up balancing out that way. And then there's some different ways you can look at paying for your solar installations. So maybe you can get a home equity loan. You can look at EcoLink loans. Those are state of Ohio subsidized loans. Cuyahoga County has a program called HELP, which is the Home Enhancement Loan Program. That is specific just to your area. So that's something that you could look into. They're going to have some R-PACE available soon. And then there's traditional home equity loans, which right now are really at some great percentages. So if you are going through a home equity loan, you can get a really good finance rate for that. Loan maturity is 5 to 10 years on loans for $12,000 or so dollars, and bank fees are typically capped on those. So it depends on your bank lending criteria and the borrower's property values and everything, of course. So then you've got, and some of the installers offer financing. You can pay in cash, of course. You've got that 26% tax credit. Do be aware that you'll want to talk to your tax consultant if you've not handled any of these type tax credits before. The solar one allows you to take it over the course of 3 years. So if you don't have the amount of liability in your taxes needed to get it all at once, you do have, a little bit of time to, take it out a couple years at a time, but you do want to be aware that that's a credit, not a, refund. So you have to have the liability there for that. It doesn't, just automatically apply if you don't have that much tax liability. And we also want to be aware of solar scams. I think we've all seen the commercials by now where they're like, we'll put solar on your roof for free. And, the old adage of you get what you pay for is very true in this case. that if they're offering it up to you for free, that there's probably some catch there to it. So do we have any questions about like your finance end of it or your solar economics end of it?
See anything yet?
All right.
Feel free to pop it in the chat if you need to do it, or you can raise your hand and we can also unmute you. That's an option. If you prefer to talk, I can keep an eye on that too.
All right. Well, we can jump back for them if we do have any more. We're going to move into our next section, though, which is solar co-ops. So
we do have one question from Matt real quick.
Okay.
Great. How do solar panels affect property taxes?
That is a good question. So I don't
Did
know.
it stump you, Mariah? That's pretty good.
You might have a little bit, but here in Franklin County, I know that they do not affect my property taxes, which was really great to hear since we installed a very large system on our home. We have a ranch and 2 electric vehicles, so we installed 13.3 kilowatts. So if we were paying taxes on that, it would have raised our property value by a fair chunk. But I don't know if that's statewide or not.
I think it's it doesn't affect the state portion of the taxes, and then it may or may not affect county portions of taxes. But in Cuyahoga County, it's the same. I think it's Franklin County, which it is considered to be not a fixture. It's actually not considered to be a fixture. So essentially, like you could theoretically remove your solar system and take it with you, just like an appliance wouldn't essentially increase your value of your home per your tax value. It would increase your market value. If you're going to leave that appliance, it's obviously going to be a benefit to the person moving in next, but it's not going to affect your tax value, at least not here. Cannot say that for every county because tax levies are done a little bit differently in different places. It may be true in every county, I'm not sure.
Definitely something I will check on as we enter different counties for things. So, but good question, but thanks for throwing that one out there.
One more question here. What is the size of a panel? What is the size of a panel for 3 panels of kilowatts? So how many panels does it take to make a kilowatt?
So it takes about 3 panels to make 1 kilowatt. So if you had space for just 3 panels, then you'd be getting 1 kilowatt of power. Some of the installers don't like to install super small systems. So if you're only installing, like 3 panels, then there might be some sort of guidelines that we'd have to talk to the installer about and see if they would allow that or not. But if most systems are typically, 3 to 5 is what we usually see even small systems come in at.
It's 330 watts is kind of the rule. It's a third of 1,000. So 300, most panels are between 300 and 450 watts. And sweet spot right now for like a good deals on really high quality panels is around 320, 350, sometimes 360 watts per panel as the energy density is what we call it. And those panels are 3 foot by 5 foot, size of American flag for most homes. And there's another question. Let's see. If the shingles are available in the future, would they be considered a fixture? That's a good question. And I'm not sure about that. I would think that they would be, since they're considered to be part of the roof, but that question hasn't been broached here. There's currently no installer in the state that does Tesla roof things, but it's a good thing we should keep an eye on. Another question here from Scott. With the rising cost of copper, has that raised install prices significantly over the past 12 months? And I think maybe Mariah, you'll be getting to that.
Well, I don't know
for the next thing here, or at least primes you for the later discussion.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back to my notes. I don't think that's in our notes for this evening, but we've got the installer selection process for this co-op in particular has already been done. So the pricing is kind of tied down for it. So I would say that we won't see an installation cost for this particular co-op very, very much, just because we do have that agreement in place with them and they've already gave a quote to the co-op. You guys are kind of in the last month of signups that we're doing for this one. So you're at a good time that, you know, you get to see what we have scored for you, what your fellow members, you know, talked about. They had a whole voting session and everything, but that's definitely something, you know, to keep in mind, that what you see now on the pricing may not be what's available if you went out and priced yourself, because they're going to be looking at, you know, the materials for just a single home instead of a bulk amount of homes. And they're also going to be looking at, you know, the prices today versus, you know, a couple of weeks ago whenever this quote came in. So, but that's a good question on that. You know, prices do just keep going up, especially with the supply chain stuff right now. So, but we'll jump in here to a little bit of what our co-ops are and what they're about. So this installation was one done in our Delaware County co-op. I happen to be fortunate enough to know the lady that got this installed. She turned up at one of our Columbus co-ops a couple years ago, talking about, you know, their installation. So they had theirs done on a pergola because at the time where they weren't allowed to have panels in front of their home. So they opted to have them put in their backyard on a pergola, which was, you know, an easily remedied situation. In a way, they were able to work around some of those regulations that they hit. So our co-op process, about 3 or 4 months ago, the co-op kicked off here in Cuyahoga County. We have held these learn about solar co-op sessions regularly throughout that process, and been taking signups the entire time. And as it grew into a group of, you know, 50 or 100 people that were interested in going solar, we kicked off the solar selection process, the co-op selection process. And so we had a vote on what day and time worked really well for several of the members. They got together, they looked over all the bids, all the RFPs for, you know, the installers. They looked at different criteria that had been selected, you know, different installation sizes, the desire to have a local company do the installs, somebody that cares about the community and is a part of it. You know, we have different things that you can opt in that are important to you. And then they did the bid review process and they voted. It was a very democratic process. They each had, you know, some different opinions on what they thought would be best for the co-op. So some of them voted one way, some of them voted another, but then they came together and they picked one installer. And so now we can even let you guys know that your installer would be Yellow Light. So if you decide to sign up for the co-op, then you'll be seeing, you know, a contact from Yellow Light and us, you know, looking over your roof and getting you, you know, a review of what your installation would look like. And you have between now and the end of the month, if you want to be in on this co-op, to sign up for it, to get your, you know, to get scheduled with the installer, to have a visit and receive your custom proposal, you know, because maybe you want to have a battery put in, maybe the next guy doesn't. And so they'll customize that to fit your needs in your home. And then you would sign the contract with that installer because it's a deal between you and them. And they would come out and install your system. And then afterwards, I don't know if we're to in-person parties yet, but we have little get-togethers in some way, shape, or form for everybody, so you can meet the other people that went solar through the co-op and celebrate the success and talk about how it went for you and everything through the process. Kind of the fun part of it. And then we have some different ways that you can be involved. And if Rafaela or Tristan knows how to put up the poll, I don't have access to that right now, but we've got a poll rigged up that we're going to drop in. But there's some different ways you can be involved. So you can do something like you are now, which is, you know, joining a co-op. So you'd have the chance to have that bulk purchase price, to be able to, you know, have the specific time and location and time frame and know that you're getting support through the process. We're always here for you. You can email us, you know, call us. We've got different ways. It's a free membership. There's no cost to, you know, participate. And if you don't want to participate, you can let us know that too. We're not going to bother you to participate. And then there's also ways that you can go be a Go Solar supporter. and sign up. We've got some different paid membership options that sometimes people like to take on to join with us and stuff. And then afterwards, outside of the co-ops, we have different things. You'll see them posted on the Facebook and Twitter, resources that we offer, and by email, where you can help to fight for energy rights, like that HOA stuff we were mentioning earlier. Perhaps you're interested in supporting, the policy going through for that. Maybe you'd like to write a letter and tell your house rep why you do think that it should be easier for people inside of homeowners associations or condo associations to go solar, or to have community solar available. And so, maybe you'd like to join one of our letter writing campaigns. And that's the way you can support that. It doesn't cost anything, takes a few minutes of your time. Like in the HOA case, we even have a form on our website. You can just click in your name and zip code, and it sends it off to your house rep for you. But all different ways you can be involved with us if you'd like to be.
There you go. Well, the poll's up. We'll leave it up for another 20, 30 seconds, and I'll go ahead and end that. Most people already submitted, so thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Never ran a poll before, so I was kind of excited about that whenever they were like, we're going to have a poll tonight. So, and then, my page says I cannot advance. There we go. So, and then if you were to go to our website, you can find your specific Cuyahoga area co-op has its own page on our website where you can, join the co-op. You can see other events, the link for tonight's presentation, as well as other ones, by Tristan, will be available on there. So if you really want to watch this again, if you missed some part of it, or if you want to see if Tristan does it better and you want to watch his presentation through and compare, you can go check those out on the website. There's all kinds of fun things on there, and you'll find, links for other ones that have happened. You can see on the little mobile phone over here on the side some different samples of, the different ones that are closed or different ones that are going on in other areas of the state. We're getting ready to kick off Dayton, and then Columbus, and hopefully Cincinnati will be following up later this summer. So all kinds of people throughout the state of Ohio are going solar, because yes, solar works very well here. And then there's some additional information here for you. So if you're looking for our battery storage guide, we've got that on our website. There's a link to check to see if there is a co-op near you. So if you happen to be tuning in from some area outside of Cuyahoga County, thank you for joining us. But this co-op is in particular for Cuyahoga County, but maybe we're opening up one near you and you just wanted to check out to see what it was. You can find out more details at our Ohio page. And then you can always reach out to Tristan. His email address and phone number are down there. And you can always reach out to any of our Ohio team members at ohteam@solarunitedneighbors.org. Didn't think to drop that up there, but that's a easy enough OH team to remember email address, and you can reach out to any of us that way. So, and I'm sure if you had some specific question that I can't answer, then it definitely should be going to Tristan anyways. So he's the best email to have up there for you. So, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, good job, Mariah. Thank you so much for putting that on. You did an excellent job, I think. But we have some more questions here. And
okay.
Maybe we can tag team this. I could take a few, I could talk about kind of working our way up from the bottom here. Whoops, something had disappeared. I got to reopen the chat over here then.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. It just, I guess it disappears when you open the, so here's one from Paul. How is your organization funded? So we are mostly grant funded. And then in Cuyahoga, we have a contract with Cuyahoga County to do a 2 years of these co-ops. So good news, because we're in the beginning of a 2-year contract, we will be doing another co-op. So even though you can join this co-op, get a proposal, and then if you decide not to, you can always go next year. Remember that the tax credit, the 26% tax credit, is going to step down at the end of this year. So you'll have that advantage until the end of this year. Next year, it'll go down to 22%, the way it's written, the way it's in the law. Hopefully it'll get extended to be 30% even, if that's what we're working on at the federal level. But right now it's 26%. So you can join the co-op. You can also join the next year's co-op. That's always an option for you folks. If now isn't the right time fiscally, you want to participate in the next year? Yeah, so that's your option. You can do that next year if you really wanted to. Does the co-op have any experience installing solar panels on townhomes? Yeah, I think we've in the past have done townhomes. There has to be some discussion with the HOA or the condominium association, and we have to figure out, and installer can help with this too, who owns the roof, and make sure that permission is sort of across the board granted to go forward with a project like that. But as long as you're getting the right permissions, and you should be fine. And the net metering laws work as long as the roof's over your head and if the meter is close enough, you can attach it to your meter there for your specific unit, and it should work fine. But again, you need to have all the sign-offs, especially if there's joint ownership of that roof. And every situation is different too, so it's gonna depend. We just got a roof shovel for our panels. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I don't even go that far. I was just looking at my watch. I track my in fact, I'm on. There's no video for me here. Let me tell you. I track my solar production. My watch there's upside down. You can see my little lot. You can see my solar. I had 15 kilowatts today, so we're back up to good old production. I had a couple of days of snow coverage, but you can always buy. If you have a roof that's close enough, you can buy some squeegees and things to, an RV roof cleaner works just fine. They're actually a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. He's showing his and mine. I don't know if it's as easy to read. It says it's not going to show you that. It's going to blur it out. But yeah. I had 38.1 kilowatt hours produced today. So yeah, my panels self-cleared. Even the first day, I'm in Central Ohio, so I didn't get as much snow. I got more ice than you guys did, but our panels were clear the first day. We were making electricity during the storm. As soon as there'd be a break in those clouds, we'd start producing electricity. So a lot of times, you'll hear it. You'll hear like this rumbling, and then all the snow just slides right off because they're smooth. It doesn't want to stick.
Is pre-approved financing required to be part of the group? Right.
I don't think so. I think you could approach them and find out what your amount owed would be, and then approach your bank and try to get financing.
So all installers offer, that's a good answer. All installers offer financing. That's going to be based on your credit score. It's usually unsecured, and we highly recommend that you look at home equity. And as Mariah mentioned, the county help loan is a great option. It's a HELOC loan. It's a home equity line of credit type product that is offered through a couple of institutions here in town. I know the county partners with Key Bank. Specifically, they used to partner with Huntington. I'm not sure they still do, but I know Key still offers the county help loan, which is a subsidized loan product. And we highly recommend going that approach. You can, if you have the money, you can write a check, right? That's cash is usually always best if you can, or very cheap money, which the help loan is. You can get pretty darn close to a 2% APR right now if you qualify for like a 5% home equity loan. Pretty neat. Since the pricing is locked down in the installer, but the agreement is with the consumers and the installer, how do we know we are getting an agreed price in the co-op? So once you join the co-op, there's a confidentiality agreement. The only reason we don't share the pricing straight up in these info sessions is we want to make sure that we keep that to just the co-op members. So we make you sign a confidentiality thing that you're not going to go out there, share it with all the other installers in town. And, it's fine to get other quotes and proposals. We encourage you to go out there and get our proposals, even once you get the proposal from the co-op, so that you can do your own internal comparisons. But once you join the co-op, we'll share with you the bid details, all the bid details, and then you'll get a proposal. You can match it up on your own. We also ask the installer sends us a few of the proposals as they go. We spot check the proposals to make sure that they're on track with matching the bid price. But you'll have all that information once you join. Yellow Light was a great company. This Dave and Sandy. Oh, great. So Yellow Light did your install Dave and Sandy here on Lakewood. That's awesome to hear. I guess I didn't quite realize Yellow Light did that. Better Together did mine. They were also one of the installers that handled the co-op in the past. If there are any facility, that's the snow clearing question.
As I say,
having
Frederick
a-
asked about electricity in an
Right.
outage, and Yellow Light did quote batteries in their RFP. So if you do sign up for the co-op, you can look over your battery options in that. They had some special pricing. So, and a lot of times what our co-op also saves you is the installation of it, because sometimes there's discounts for, if they're bulk ordering, 10 batteries, maybe they're getting a discount on those too. So that might be a little bit better pricing than you can find. I know our battery through a co-op here in Columbus was a little bit cheaper than it would have been if we had bought our battery separate, because that was in the co-op pricing. So
good. Yeah, you could do it next year. And then I think you just wanted to make sure you got that question about pre-approval. Yeah, there's no pre-approval process or anything like that. You can join the co-op, you get a proposal, you can figure out how to pay for it yourself, and then they're going to offer you some financial products to help you pay for it. I highly recommend, again, I can't stress enough to read all the fine print, even with like trusted, good installers that do good quality work at a good price. You still partner with these firms that do the financing. And you want to just make sure to read exactly the details you're getting into, because unsecured loans start to get, can get a little bit interesting. You want to make sure you read the fine print, but they're not, the clean energy credit unions out there too, if you want to jot that down. Clean Energy Credit Union. They are a cool group that actually offers solar secured loans. So they'll come and repo your panels if you can't pay. But I mean, they're a slightly better product than some of the unsecured loan stuff. Any other questions? And again, Mariah did a great job. Thank you so much for just jumping right in. Excellent job. It's like you've been doing it for years. You kind of have been doing it for like a year. So I guess that adds up.
and I participated in a co-op previously. So I went to these info sessions, was asking all these questions. So
for EV chargers with solar power, this is a good question for you. Will the energy have to be converted to AC, then converted back to DC? And actually, I don't know. That's a good question.
It does have to, because at home, your home chargers, we have 2 electric vehicles and a third one on order. So we're about to have a bi-directional vehicle available here in our home, but that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. But the power that you're putting in at home is AC, because you're using your J1772 if you have anything besides a Tesla, or your Tesla chargers those are level 2. So those are hooked up to your AC. So it's not going in DC at home. DC is only fast charging. So those are those giant commercial units like Electrify America. And there's some demand charges and everything else. So even the highest powered homes, let's say that you did have a 400 amp service, that is still AC service inside your house. So good question, but it doesn't have to be converted back, because you're still using AC at home for your charging. So we have some nice powered by sunshine type stickers though that we send out through some of the different electric car groups if you've got your electric car.
Question, Mariah. Because I was thinking about this. I have a plug-in hybrid,
Yes.
And I just have a level 1 charger because it's only a 4 or 5 kilowatt hour battery. But can you get EV charger inverters so that like you don't have to like convert the energy twice, or essentially, or is that just something that doesn't?
So the car stores the power in DC, those giant traction batteries. Even the big battery in yours is a traction battery, and it has the power stored in DC. And so if you did want to pull the power back out of it, I don't know about your C-Max the same way. I can talk about it for the Leaf, because we have a Nissan Leaf, and it has some bi-directional capabilities. So we have a inverter that we bought, and we hook it up to our house, and we can run basic systems off of that. We don't do that as often now, since we have, a battery hooked up to our whole house panel. So like right now we're working on our batteries discharging. We're down to about 79% of it left. So we're working on the power we made today is pulling out of the battery, but we could have the option to hook up, an inverter on the car to convert the DC power in the battery into AC power that our house could use. Are there ever units installed only for car charging? There are I don't know that you'd want to do that on your rooftop, but there's a company called Beam that makes something called a solar arc. It is a freestanding off-grid solar powered option for charging, and they'll drop those into city lots. They're really common at like libraries. I think that the Wilds down outside of Zanesville was looking at installing those because they don't have the power capabilities to power a charger for a car, but they have, you know, land available obviously for solar. A lot of times those will have a battery backup so that people can charge, you know, even in bad weather or in the dark or whatever. But I don't want to jump too far off board with EVs and, you know, car and solar tied systems. You know, I mean, I know that can go completely into outfield. You can always, you know, I'll drop my email into the chat here if you want to talk those kind of things. I welcome it. I happen to be the chapter leader of Drive Electric Columbus, and I can also put you guys into touch with your Drive Electric Northeast Ohio leadership team and let you hook up with them if you have some other questions too.
Great. Well, I think that brings us right to the hour here. You know, great discussion. And again, thank you, Mariah, for kicking butt here. And there's her email in the chat. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at OHTeams or mwilliams@Solar United Neighbors. Either way, I'll get it or Mariah will get it. And we will be happy to answer your questions and come on over to the website and check out the co-op too, if you'd like. And thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, we hope to see you all signing up and getting solar on your roofs. We'd love to help you out with it. So, bye.